Grandma keeps falling out of wheelchair, so family installs camera and makes shocking discovery. We all desire happiness and minimal suffering for our loved ones, especially in their final moments. For this reason, many of us opt to place our elders in specialized care facilities where their needs are attended to and they can make the most of their remaining time. These facilities are often considered wonderful places, offering various advantages. Elders live peacefully, surrounded by qualified professionals dedicated to ensuring their well-being until the end of their days. Or at least that's how it should be. Regrettably, even in such places, dark secrets may be concealed. Without our knowledge, our loved ones could be entrusted to the care of individuals with malicious intent, making their lives unbearable. Minnie Graham was a strong, intelligent, and feisty woman who lived as she wished until the day she died. Mrs. Graham was never a simple person. Even as a child, her parents could not understand her. She loved to read, especially the novels of Jane Austen and Virginia Woolf, with which she fed her liberal ideals that no one seemed to understand, except for her little sister Danielle, with whom she could share her thoughts without fear of being judged and dream of a better life far from social ties. The neighbors, especially those who were more conservative, saw her as a rebel who endangered the established order and the traditional values of society. It could be said that Minnie was one of those first visionary women who began to believe that women deserved to have a better life, and that they could be more than just well-educated mothers, wives, and daughters. Minnie's teenage life was not easy, especially when she came of age and her parents began to pressure her with the idea of marriage. Seeing that she would never get her family's acceptance and that by staying with them she could never be free to live her own way, at 21, Minnie made the decision to leave home. She left only a letter explaining everything she felt and the reasons why she had decided to leave them. It was a bitter farewell, but she knew it was necessary. Otherwise, she would always live the life that others had planned for her, and for her that was no longer feasible. Fortunately, after that sad event, her life began to improve, especially when she met the man who would later become the love of her life, Henry Graham. Henry was, broadly speaking, the least traditional man you could meet in the 60s. Being like his beloved Minnie, a complete misunderstood member of society, he loved to feel free and explore the world without any limitations. Their relationship was anything but normal. Henry was an art dealer, which meant he spent most of his time on trains and planes. Minnie had been a teacher, but when she fell in love with him, she decided to leave everything to follow him and explore the world together. And the truth is that they did not do badly at all. Of course, after more than 2 years of dating and extraordinary trips around the world, they got married and thought about starting their own family, but never in the traditional and boring way that their parents and most of the people they knew used to do. The modern couple decided to tie the knot in Spain while traveling and discovering the exotic Canary Islands, so there were no guests and no memorable celebrations. Then, after spending a whole month of honeymoon touring the mysterious pyramids of Egypt, the couple decided to return to the USA, specifically to Texas, to buy a beautiful house and start a family. Their life was just as they had always dreamed it would be. Within a year of moving to Texas, Minnie became pregnant with twin girls, Sydney and Natalie, who were born at 8 months pregnant and filled their lives with love and joy forever. However, their happiness would not end there, as 3 years after the birth of the twins, Minnie unexpectedly became pregnant again, welcoming a baby boy they would name Theo. Life as parents gave them a new perspective on things, but it never changed their way of thinking nor their non-traditional approach to life. They were both loving and innovative parents who strove to raise their 3 children in a tolerant and understanding way, far removed from everything they'd experienced when they were young. After the birth of their children, Minnie decided to lead a quieter and more familiar life, at which time she decided to dedicate herself to a great dream, to be a writer. Meanwhile, her husband continued to travel, but at a much slower pace so that he could spend more time at home and help her raise her 3 children. And it was precisely that education and the love that their parents gave them throughout their lives which made that when the time came in the twilight of their lives, Minnie and Henry Graham enjoyed the unconditional love and company of their loved ones. Their children adored them, and they were always very conscious of how fortunate they were to have them as parents, which is why when the time came to take care of them and give them a dignified end, they spared no expense and wanted to provide them with the best care within their reach. Unfortunately, the first to die of the 2 was Henry at the age of 89 from pancreatic cancer, which he battled for more than 5 years. He was a fighter and his entire family was by his side until the end, but the doctors could do nothing more to save him. Minnie was devastated, and although she was well aware that this day would come and that she would have to say goodbye to her great love, the loss of her beloved husband caused her immense pain that nothing and no one was able to calm. Minnie, on the other hand, enjoyed iron health until she was 98 years old, when her mind stopped functioning properly and doctors diagnosed her with advanced dementia. I regret to inform you that Mrs. Graham is suffering from severe dementia. Given the advanced stage of the disease and her age, we recommend that you admit her to a specialized facility to care for her and provide her with everything she needs for her well-being. I'm not saying that you can't take care of her, but these illnesses can be very difficult to cope with, especially when they occur in such old people. Her body will deteriorate very quickly and she'll need constant attention, the family's trusted doctor explained to them after examining the old woman's test results. After the sad diagnosis, her children and grandchildren decided that the best way to care for her would be to admit her to Winters Park Nursing Home in Garland, Texas. That nursing home was considered the best in the state and everyone recommended it, so they did not hesitate to enroll her there to take care of her. The elderly woman's family entrusted her to the facility's palliative care staff, hoping that their loved one would receive the extensive care she desperately needed for her final weeks of life. Unfortunately, nothing went as expected. At first, everything seemed to be going well and Mrs. Graham seemed to be happy with her new home, but within a few weeks, everything began to get complicated, and what should have been the remedy became the problem. Minnie's granddaughters visited her practically every day, bringing her clean clothes, magazines, and accompanying her on walks in the garden while she told them stories of her youth. And it was precisely during one of these visits that they began to realize that something was very wrong. During one of the visits, they found the poor lady battered and bruised. She had large bruises all over her body and Minnie's mood was much worse. "Grandma, did they hurt you? Who hit you? You can tell us, don't be afraid. Please tell us who was the one who dared to hurt you." One of her granddaughters begged her when she saw the pitiful state in which the old woman was. Minnie managed to explain through tears that she'd been abused by her caregivers and claimed that more than one caregiver had beaten her on multiple occasions. When her family confronted the nursing staff at the nursing home, they denied everything and defended themselves by saying that Minnie had a habit of falling out of her wheelchair, and that is what had caused the injuries they'd seen, but the family didn't believe a word of it. The family's concerns and suspicions led them to take action by installing a hidden camera in the elderly woman's room. They said she'd fallen out of the wheelchair and that no one beat the patients there, explained Shirley Ballard to the media, Minnie's granddaughter, who added that she never believed at all that this was what really happened. However, after weeks of secret taping, the family was completely horrified by the disturbing truth they discovered. The situation was far worse than they expected, and they had to act as soon as possible. The footage showed the extent to which Mrs. Graham was being abused by her caregivers. The videos show caregivers Brenna Taylor and Iwuchukwu Lewis Ekuchukwu hitting, pushing, slapping, and insulting the elderly woman as she screamed in pain and begged them to stop. "When my grandmother screams in pain, they completely ignore her," stated another of Minnie's grandchildren, Terry Hardin, who shared the footage with Fox 4 Channel News. The images also show Minnie being sprayed in the face with water and with a towel stuffed in her mouth after being used to wash her body. They could also see that beyond the physical abuse, Tiller tormented Minnie psychologically, calling her ugly, retarded, and mocking her constantly. After their heinous acts were caught on camera, both Ekuchukwu and Tiller were fired and subsequently charged with felony injury to the elderly after Minnie's family filed a complaint against them for mistreatment at a nursing home. Unfortunately, while all this was going on and the family was fighting for justice, CBS reported that tragically, just weeks after the footage brought the center's mistreatment to light, Minnie Graham passed away. "She gave up," Shirley said of her late grandmother. "She didn't want to live anymore. She was tired of suffering and her body couldn't take the pain anymore. She was such a happy and full of life woman. She didn't deserve such an end. It is an injustice and we will not stop fighting until we get those evildoers to pay for what they've done to my grandmother," Shirley added. However, justice was not as swift nor as effective as might have been desired. For although Ekuchukwu was soon arrested, Tiller continued to work at several other facilities while the police claimed they were unable to locate her. However, to everyone's surprise, tracking down the stalker nurse was no big deal for Fox 4's special news team, who quickly found Tiller at her home and even confronted the palliative care nurse when she tried to flee. According to the Ranson Key law firm, the law firm the Graham family had hired for the case, years later Tiller was eventually convicted on the felony charge of maltreatment and the abuse of authority. However, she was only sentenced to 5 years probation and had her nursing license revoked, a small sentence for all the pain this woman had inflicted on her victims. "I just don't know how there can be such heartless people in this world," Shirley said. "In a way, justice was served. We hope she can't do it again and that there will be no more victims like my dear grandmother," the young woman added sadly, remembering her late grandma. Unfortunately, Minnie's case is all too common in our society today, where the elderly are frequently subjected to mistreatment and neglect. It is our responsibility to combat and eliminate this type of behavior, ensuring that our loved ones receive proper care during their final years of life. We owe it to them. Only in this way can we prevent tragedies like these from happening again. Stories as sad as that of the enthusiastic and philanthropic Minnie Graham, a woman who lived true to herself until the end. Her ending was far too unjust and should have never occurred. Did you like this touching and surprising story? If so, we invite you to leave us a comment expressing your opinion. If you want to continue enjoying inspiring stories like this one, subscribe to our channel or check out the other videos shown at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for your cooperation.